America is sitting on the biggest debt crisis in our history. And at the same time, AI may be in a bubble. And major companies are laying people off by the thousands. Let's break down what this means for your average American. Welcome back to another episode of Shinance. I know y'all miss me. I had to take a week off to get the mental right, get straight. We back. I got the, some financial topics for y'all so we can get to it in the comments and really discuss. Let's talk about big 38 trillion. That's where we at with our national debt right now. 38 trillion. I remember in 2020 we were at 33 trillion. I thought that was a crazy number. 38 trillion is even crazier. Our debt to GDP ratio is currently 120%. And there's only a few ways to take care of this, right? Obviously, you pay down your debt, right? That's a smart, Another way would be to more output, more GDP. And then a non-favorable option would be to raise American citizen taxes to pay down the debt. Would you be okay with the government raising our taxes? I wouldn't, because there's already fraud within our system. So giving the government more money, I don't think that'd be the best idea. I would rather us take a whole different route. And, we've tried. They had Doge finding money for us. And, we got the tariff money that they're still trying to figure out where that's going. So I know that we're trying to figure this out. Inflation's a thing. There's a lot of different moving parts within this whole realm. But this is a number that is getting out of control. And then there was a credit card. Credit card debt for U.S. consumers is at 1.2 trillion, which is kind of high to me. But what I found was a little interesting was that the average FICO score is still, I believe, 715. So at least if consumers are taking on more debt, they're still willing to pay. That just means they're going to just be paying longer than they ever anticipated in their lifetime. It's going to be very interesting where this goes if we don't catch a grip on this. Like, we got to win something within this realm, because it's, like I said, 38 trillion. But the answer may be AI, because they're saying that AI may be the answer. It's the new technology, right? And, Google just came out and shocked the world with this multi-billion-dollar talks with Meta for these ASIC chips. I believe they're called ASIC chips. They're not the same as the NVIDIA chips. The NVIDIA chips are more general chips, so you can use for many different things. These ASIC chips that Google and Microsoft and Amazon are, developing are more app-specific, app-driven. They're made for one thing, and they're cheaper, and that's why Meta's willing to dabble with Google versus paying top dollar for the general chips if they can get either the same results or maybe even better. We'll see. As time passes, we'll definitely see where this goes. It's interesting because now Google's kind of becoming a competitor when people thought that Google was falling behind. Shout out to me for owning some Google. I had to disclose that to y'all real quick just in case I sounded biased. And we caught a little jump. I ain't gonna tell y'all where I got in at Google, but just say I'm very happy with where we at, right? And what I do want to add to that is that the NVIDIA spokesman came out after praising Google for their growth and them doing their thing with Meta. They still said we're still gonna support, we're still gonna provide our product to Google, like pretty much big dogging them, like yeah, cool. They're selling those chips, but they still need our chips to do whatever they're trying to do. So, Meta got their data centers, so I'm sure that's probably where they're using those NVIDIA chips. So it's getting mixy. NVIDIA had went down a little bit, but I think overall this is good for the AI market. If anything, if there was a bubble, I think it lets out a little bit of air because now there's competition. It's only a matter of time before Amazon gets some deals with some other companies. Microsoft gets some deals with some other companies. If they don't have them right now, do your own research. I haven't done mine, on those companies, but these ones that we're talking about, a multi-billion-dollar chip deal is huge. That's huge for Google, real big. So I'm actually excited. I'm actually very excited. Michael Burry still thinks that AI bubble is alive. He even went so deep to say that NVIDIA and other companies may be doing some type of accounting fraud with depreciation. And this may go over a lot of people's heads, but pretty much when you make an investment, like, they buy the chips in bulk. And let's say they pay $1 million in chips, they get to depreciate a certain amount, right? And of that $1 million to offset their accounting. And Michael Burry's pretty much saying that they're hiding their debt. Pretty much. He's kind of like insinuating this stuff based off his analysis, which is kind of messed up to say a company's doing that without, I don't know. I get it because I guess they're saying, the companies are saying that these chips last 6 years, and Michael Burry's saying, based on his analysis, that the chips only last 2 years. So they're still depreciating the chips even though that they're not in service, right? And, actually I was listening to a video and it was like a great example. You don't wait 6 years your average person doesn't wait 6 years to change their iPhone, right? So just keep that into perspective, right? You kind of want a new iPhone every 2 to 3 years. Like, technology is moving pretty fast. You don't really if you can afford it, you don't really want to be operating on an iPhone from 6 years ago. Maybe, even though I probably am. But that's just something to think about. And even with all this AI talks, I do think that there's opportunities for your everyday American to still get into this world. And I feel like it's in the energy space because these data centers can't run without energy. We don't have the proper energy for everybody to have their own data centers, for everybody to have multiple data centers. Truthfully, I think that these data centers are going to add a lot of stress to our grid. And I think that has to be a growing interest for a lot of people in America. And I mean, you can see a lot of these stocks here, do your own research. I ain't gonna tell you which energy. There's a couple of them out there: Oklo, Bloom Energy, Next Era Energy. There's ETFs. Look into the ETFs, the energy ETFs, and see which stocks are being held within those ETFs, and then you can kind of single them out. Just free game right there. You can kind of single them out and figure out, if you don't want to. I'm not a big ETF guy, so that's kind of like my strategy. I go see what these ETFs are holding, and then I just go scoop up, some shares on myself. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity within the energy space for new investors. So if that's something that may interest you, I would say definitely do your research in that field, because without the energy, ain't none of this stuff gonna work. Nothing is gonna work without the energy. And what else isn't working right now, clearly, is these jobs, they laying off people, right? These companies are laying off people by the thousands. I got a whole list, y'all. Let's just go down, right? And it's kind of because of AI and kind of just because of the times we're in. I always like to say that America is very great at taking advantage of a downturn, even though it hasn't even hit the downturn. They're good at taking advantage of bad news. And these companies, as follows: HP set to lay off 4,000 to 6,000 workers. Verizon, 13,000 workers. GM, 1,700 workers. Paramount, 2,000 workers. Amazon laying off like a bunch of workers. UPS laying off a bunch of workers. Target, many more. They're all out there laying people off. It's a scary time in America, right? Because with credit card debts at 1.2 trillion, national debt at 38 trillion, how are we going to be paying this money back if less jobs means we're being less productive? But I will say America is very good at bouncing back and figuring things out once we hit the floor. I'm not saying I want us to hit the floor. I'm just saying that we're good. We've shown in history that we bounce back, even though it takes time. We bounce back and we figure it out. a lot of these jobs are being lost to AI. And me personally, I use AI every single day. It hasn't made me any money, but it's definitely made me way more productive, way more faster, way more efficient in doing certain things. And I can see where a company, if you plug in some of this AI into some of these companies, I can see that their revenues are going to go crazy. Their revenues are going to go crazy. I'm gonna be honest with you. So I can see where companies are going to save a lot of money. It depends on the government and how the government operates, as far as like, whether they're taxing these companies to offset some of these layoffs and unemployment. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these people are going to be paying. They're going to be asking for unemployment money, right? And now, who paying for that? You know what I'm saying? So that's something that is just going on in the world right now. I'm not happy about it, but it's just where we're at. And I think that if you are someone that is losing your job to AI, I think the best next step for you would be to master AI in whatever field or whatever career you want to go. And then that way you are a useful person in this growing space. It's one thing to just sit here and complain. I was out the other day and I seen someone put rocks, they put rocks to block the robot that delivers food. And in my head, it's like, I feel like food delivery is like a low hanging job. And not to diss anybody that does food delivery, I've done that myself, but you're not making huge bucks delivering food. So to stop a robot from doing that job is kind of just like wild to me, because it can open up an opportunity for a higher paying job. Maybe whoever controls the robot, a robot technician, you know what I mean? There's different type of jobs that can be created from letting us embrace AI and embrace the new technology versus trying to like shut it down and stop it from operating. Waymo is going crazy. Uber just announced doing the first selfless driving car overseas, I think in Dubai, and they've partnered with a China company. So it's happening. Like I never thought we would be here, self-driving cars, but it's here. I also think, driving people around is a low-hanging fruit type of job, like taxi, low-hanging fruit type of job. There's some freedom in it for sure, because you get to pick up hours, but there's going to be a whole new world we live in. And, like I said, if you lose your job, learn how to use the AI in some way, shape, or form, and I think that you'll be very, very, very useful. Let's talk about one of them companies that did drop off a lot of people due to layoffs, UPS. And I think UPS is going to have a good year as far as like, end of the year shopping, deliveries. I can see it with my hopes and my analysis, it getting up to this 129, 133, all-time highs. I'd love to see that. All-time high 133. I would love to see that. They're at 122 last December. So currently at $95. I'm not telling y'all to invest in UPS. I'm in there like swimwear, But that's one of the ones that I'm kind of like, I've been watching for a little bit, and it probably just gonna be a swing for real at some point. If it hits all-time highs, I'm probably getting out of there. Because there's a lot of competition in that delivery space. But I'm looking for the opportunities, and that's what we have to do as investors. Keep looking for opportunities, keep looking for them gaps. Don't be scared. Don't be scared when it's time to strike. And you're either gonna make money or you're gonna lose money, but you'll learn either way. You'll learn either way. I appreciate y'all for watching. Until next week, stay solid.